Why did the Roman Empire split into East and West? Secrets of a divided empire. The Roman Empire once stretched from the misty hills of Britain to the deserts of Arabia, an unbreakable giant, or so it seemed. But by the 4th century CE, Rome had been torn in two. An Eastern empire ruled from Byzantium, Constantinople, and a Western empire ruled from Rome. Why did the greatest empire of the ancient world break apart? The real story is more dramatic and more inevitable than you might think. A crisis of control. The 3rd century was a time of chaos for Rome. Civil wars, rebellious provinces, and invading enemies battered the empire from every side. The crisis nearly shattered the state. But in the late 200s, Emperor Diocletian pulled it back together. For nearly 100 years, Rome stood strong again, but trouble was brewing. In 330 CE, Emperor Constantine the Great, yes, the one who made Christianity Rome's official religion, moved the capital from Rome to Byzantium, a city at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. It was a calculated move, away from the poisonous intrigues of Rome and closer to the empire's wealthiest provinces. Divided thrones, divided worlds after Constantine, his heirs split the empire between themselves. Technically, it was still one Rome, but in reality, the East and West began to drift apart. Every so often, a powerful ruler, like Theodosius I, would reunite both halves. But after his death, the final split became official. The West went to his son Honorius, the East to Arcadius. The rest is history. But why did it happen? It wasn't just family politics. Too big to rule. By the 4th century, Rome was simply too vast to manage from a single city. Imagine sending a messenger from the Persian border to Rome. It could take over a month. Meanwhile, enemies massed on every frontier, and slow communications meant slow responses. The solution? Divide and conquer. 2 emperors, each ruling a more manageable slice of the empire, each able to act quickly and decisively. East versus West, the economic divide. But there was a deeper problem: money. For centuries, the eastern provinces, modern Greece, Turkey, and the Near East, had grown wealthy. Trade flourished in the great cities. Fortunes were made on silk and spices, and the region was crisscrossed by busy trade routes. The West, by contrast, was mostly farmland and villages. Sure, Rome was still powerful, but when times got tough, the rich East was tired of footing the bill for the poor, unstable West. When the 3rd century crisis hit, separatist sentiments surged in the East. Why should we pay for Rome's endless civil wars and palace conspiracies? They wondered. In response, Diocletian tried to clamp down with tough new taxes and strict controls. But this only made things worse, especially in the busy urbanized East, where people felt the burden most. The inevitable split. The official reason for the split was better management. But in reality, the East and West had been drifting apart for generations. By the late 300s, the differences were too big to ignore. Socially, economically, and even culturally, the divide was inevitable. In time, the Western Empire would fall to invaders, while the Eastern Empire, better known as Byzantium, would survive for another 1,000 years. So why did Rome split in two? Geography, greed, politics, and the relentless march of history. When a world gets too big to hold together, sooner or later, it falls apart.